All right, let's have a different kind of conversation about network security today. We're not just going to talk about the tech. We're going to move past that and talk directly about professional liability.
Because that's the reality of the job now, isn't it? This isn't about routing tables or subnet masks anymore. It's about responsibility. It's about how accountability shows up at your door months or sometimes years after those early design decisions were made.
The biggest failures we see, they don't start with some loud, flashing alarm. They start with quiet choices. That temporary firewall rule that, just became permanent. That convenient network connection you set up for a vendor. Or that flat network you inherited and just never got the budget to fix. These are the little seeds that grow into massive incidents down the road.
So let's start with one of the most, and I mean most, misunderstood concepts in our entire field, segmentation. For way too many organizations, what they call segmentation is really just a cosmetic thing. It's an illusion of security, and frankly, it's a dangerous one.
Okay, this slide right here is critical. Look at the difference. On one side, you have segmentation. That's just about grouping things to be neat and tidy. It looks great on a Visio diagram, right? But on the other side, you have segregation. That's about enforced real separation. It's what actually stops an attacker. And let's be crystal clear about this. Your auditors, the regulators, and especially the courts, they could not care less about your neat little groups. They only care about segregation.
So where is this segregation an absolute non-negotiable must? Well, this matrix lays it out pretty clearly. Your HR systems with all that personal data, they have to be walled off from your regular user networks. Finance systems, keep them far away from your OT and IoT devices. But look at these bottom two rows, because this is where people get into trouble. Your OT and building management systems, they need to be completely separate from IT. And your cameras, man, those need to be segregated from literally everything.
And I really want you to let this quote sink in. It's blunt for a very good reason. These systems that seem so low risk, these sort of gray area devices, this is where catastrophic failures begin. A compromised camera that lets an attacker pivot into your financial systems, that's not just a technical problem. That is a failure of architectural governance that will have huge legal and regulatory fallout.
Which brings us to what I think is the most critical skill a CISO can have: translating these technical situations into real, quantifiable business risk. This is how you get people to listen. It's how you get budget. You have to take the conversation out of the server room and put it squarely in the boardroom.
For example, you don't walk in and say, the network is flat. That's a technical note. No, you say, we have a significant risk of uncontained ransomware propagation that could impact every single one of our business units. You see the difference? One is an IT problem. The other is a company-ending threat.
Same idea here. We use shared infrastructure sounds efficient, maybe even smart, but the reality is it's a single point of failure creating correlated outage risk. Suddenly, completely unrelated services can all go down at the same time. That's a systemic risk, and the board needs to hear about it in those terms.
Oh, and this one is a classic. A vendor VPN isn't just a simple convenience. It is a persistent, usually unmanaged trust relationship. The real risk is uncontrolled third-party access that completely bypasses our internal controls. When you frame it like that, the danger is suddenly very, very real.
So you have to understand that an incident, it's not the failure itself, it's just the catalyst. It's the loud, painful event that makes all those quiet, pre-existing architectural flaws suddenly visible to absolutely everyone. Just think about a typical ransomware attack. Sure, it starts with one endpoint getting compromised. That happens. But what happens next? The malware moves sideways with almost zero friction. It finds all your file servers, it hits Active Directory, and boom, it encrypts the backups. The most important question you can ask after that is not why didn't our EDR catch it? The question is, why was all of that movement possible in the first place? That is an architectural question.
And this just nails the point home, doesn't it? Your tools are probably doing their jobs. The firewalls are enforcing the exact rules you wrote. The failure wasn't in the tool. The failure was in the flawed logic that you told the tool to enforce.
This is another huge insight, especially when we talk about stolen credentials. Just because a login is successful doesn't mean the right person is doing the right thing. When a vendor's VPN credentials get stolen and used to wander all over your network, that's a perfectly legitimate authentication that leads to a completely illegitimate outcome. And why? Because the network architecture granted way too much authorization. And all of this, it's all leading to a brand new reality. What I'd call the reckoning. The era where the CISO could just be a technologist in the background, that's over.
Personal liability for architectural governance is here, and believe me, it is growing fast.
Look at this number from Gartner. By the end of 2025, a full 60% of organizations are expected to hold their CISOs personally accountable for cyber failures. I mean, think about that. The stakes of this job have fundamentally, completely changed.
Your role has evolved. You are not just defending the perimeter anymore. You are the person shaping how information flows and is protected across the entire business. You're a data strategist. You are a steward of the company's most critical assets. You are an architect of trust, and you're being held accountable like one.
So how do we get ahead of this, right? How do we avoid being judged with 20/20 hindsight? The answer is by developing foresight. It's about adopting the architect's mindset before an incident ever happens, not scrambling for one afterwards. These principles, they really represent a fundamental shift. It's about moving away from just reacting to blinking lights on a dashboard and towards proactively governing your entire architecture. It means you assume things will fail, you prioritize visibility over just buying more tools, and you treat every single grant of trust as a long-term liability. This is the very foundation of foresight.
And so I'll leave you with this one last question to think about. If it all goes wrong tonight, if ransomware hits your network, which network design decision, which shortcut you took, which unmanaged trust relationship from years ago will you regret the most? Think about that now, because foresight is all about answering that question before you're forced to.